All right, so Tika, are you ready?
Yeah, sure.
All right, take away.
Awesome. So yeah, thank you so much, Professor Hu, to invite me over. And I'm really excited to share my story with you. And hello, everyone. So today I'm going to talk about 21st century sports analytics and innovation. And this topic is very new, as you can see, it just tell you 21st century. And because sports analytics is such a new topic, I'm going to share with you like very latest research, innovation in the industry and in the research. And it's very relevant to you as well, because as far as I know, you are all in the sports management department. And by the time you graduate, this topic will be so popular everywhere. And so it will be really good that today you get something out of it. So myself, I'm just going to talk about a little bit about my background. Why am I here talking about sports analytics? So I'm currently a PhD candidate in computer science at Harvard University. And my research focus is in data visualization, which means I try to make data like visualize it, make it more insightful, easy to understand for people who make decisions. So you can imagine the coaches, the players who are nowhere close to the statistician or data scientist, but they can still make use of data. And the other discipline I'm working on is called human-computer interaction. And this is actually very relevant to what I have done with my previous employer, 76ers, because like similar to data visualization, where you make a very difficult thing easy to understand for people who actually need it. Human computer interaction is by designing a good software, make the software, the dashboard easy to use for people who make decisions. So I'm working on this interdiscipline domain where I combine sports data and then the methodology from human computer interaction or HCI and make a very easy to use applications that help people in the sports domain. So some of my previous experience, so I worked with Facebook before, just working on some research about AR, VR, and then I also work as data visualization designer at Visa, and most relevantly is my job experience as a user experience developer at 76ers. So I will talk more about it, but overall, my job is I make data accessible and insightful for decision makers. That's all you need to know. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about three things. And the first thing is what is even sports analytics? I'm going to talk about its background and like what it leads to the current sports industry. So the second part, I'm going to talk about how the sports analytics is applied to professional sports league startups. And there's a really famous conference that you should hear of if you haven't. It's called MIT Sports Analytics Long Conference. And this whole conference is not just about sports analytics, it's about sports analytics in all kinds of sports related industry. So it can be professional sports teams, it can be like a big media broadcasting company, or even like startups. It's like everything related to sports will go there every year. So in March, actually. Um, and I'm going to share about my story, what I work on briefly in the NBA 76ers. And lastly, I want to talk about because you are going to graduate in 3 or 4 years, right? So at that time, the sports analytics will be very different from what it is right now. So I'm going to talk about like emerging trend, like what the leading companies in the current sports analytics industry are doing, and also a little bit about the research because research is always ahead of industry by 5, 10 years. So there's a domain called Sports XR, which I'm working on. So it basically combines sports analytics with AR, VR, MR, or like XR in general. So yeah, I'm very excited to share this with you. And if you have any question, feel free to type into the chat or you can like ask me afterwards. Okay, so first, what is sports analytics? So I'm going to ask you, I know I'm going to ask you because I want to make it a little bit more interactive, but you can just type in the chat, where do you think sports analytics is being used? Anything, like any sports, any industrial sectors, where do you think analytics is used in sports? Okay, so yeah, feel free just type it in to the chat as I'm continuing to talk. So a little bit about the background. So when I'm talking about sports analytics, it's not any sports analytics. It's modern sports analytics, which means we use modern computing technology like to deal with big data and with some statistical models to drag or derive insights out of this big data. And this really hasn't start until 2002. So that's why it's so new and it's in 21st century. So I don't know if you heard of the Moneyball movie, and this is if you haven't seen this movie, I highly recommend you to watch it. This is talking about the story of MLB, Major League Baseball. In 2002, Oakland Athletics, their general manager Billy Beane, he has very limited budget, but he still wants to win the game. So he hired a computer scientist and start to work on a very early version of sports analytics. So they try to dig out like what makes a player good, like a bat in terms of batting. And at the time, most people think batting average is like the most important metric to evaluate how good this batter is. However, just by some really basic linear regression model, they found that it's actually on base percentage that is more important and contribute to the winning rate or like how much games they win in the season. So instead, Billy, they try to draft some players. They are usually undervalued. People don't think they are as good, but they actually have very good on base percentage. And eventually, in the season, they won several games against rich teams like Yankees and Red Sox. And it was really mind-blowing at the moment. And just gradually, this sports analytics in baseball has become a specific domain called sabermetrics, which basically means sports analytics in baseball. And this has subsequently impact all other professional sports in the 21st century. So NBA, MLB, NFL, and NHL, they all have certain amount of analytics integrated into their game strategy development. We'll talk about it more. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, like I said, NBA, basketball, right? And then NFL, football, and like even hockey has analytics in it. I will show you some numbers later. And so from the general manager or coach perspective, so why do we even need sports analytics? So the number one reason is to win, because everyone wants to win. That's how they make money and keep hiring the best players onto their team. And to win, there are obviously many, like you guys are sports management experts or will be sports manager experts, there are so many resources you need to manage, and data is one of the like secret power that gives you winning edge. So that's why people start to really engage into sports analytics. So for example, for the operation side, general manager, they need to manage team assets, and they includes a lot of data like what's the salary caps and what's the different draft picks each team has. And then they want to hire the best player and coach. So that also means that they need to have a objective way to evaluate how good a player or a coach is. So that builds on data. And then for the coaching staffs, they need to develop team chemistry and playbook. So for example, they want to know if a certain play is very efficient or not, how much they need to improve on their playbook, and how well does these different players play together. So this, of course, you can rely on your experience, but with data, you get to make a more data-driven and a more objective decisions. And also they use this kind of data to train players, like identify which area the player needs to improve on. And also a more important thing is the exhaustive scouting. So traditional scout, meaning you have to go to different games and record all the videos. But right now, if we have all the data extract directly from the video, then you can have more data with less effort. And finally, for the players, they can also make use of this big data. So they want to be trained to be an excellent player, and also they want to identify and develop their own strengths. Let me give you an example. So when I work at 76ers, the director of data analytics at the moment, so my manager, he usually had a one-on-one with a basketball player, like NBA player on the team every other week. And what they talk about is like they will look at this player's specific number about like their shot percentage by different location, like 3-pointer or at the ring. But more importantly, they also break it down by the action. So for example, they would say, okay, look at this number. When you dribble and then you shoot, your shot percentage is 30% lower than you just do the catch and shoot. And that is like immediately tell the player that if you want to make sure your performance is the best, you either do less about dribble, but just do the catch and shoot, or you have to train more on dribbling and shooting. So this really helps those players to understand themselves and identify where they need to focus on next. So yeah, so we can see that from the general manager to coach to players, they can all benefit a lot from analytics. Then why is it even just started in 21st century, right? If it's so great, why not do it earlier? So it has something to do with the process of data collection. And because I say this modern sports analytics, it relies a lot on the big data. So obviously you need a good way to collect and process all this big data. So this is only available recently after 21st century. So include the computational power. You now can calculate a lot of data on the cloud and in parallel very quickly. And then the other thing very important is the sensing and graphical technologies. So sensing technology meaning the camera tracking or even like the wearable device where you detect the heartbeat, detect the movement. And then the graphic technology means if you want to, you can have a high resolution video record, and then you need some way to extract like the player position based on the video. So this all depends heavily on computer science, like computer graphics and like, tracking. And lastly, is the computer vision. So computer vision is that you can imagine it is like a robot who is very good at recognizing the objects in the video, in the image. So that's also very computer science and technology focused. So let me give you some example. So here, because I work in NBA, so the only example you will find is in basketball. So this is a history of NBA data. On the horizontal line, you can see this is the year number, so 1955 to 2014. And there are, roughly speaking, three era of the data collection. So between 1955 to 71, it's actually just right after the NBA league was established. This is called dark age. So the data they collect are really basic. It's just who's on the court and how many scores they made. And very basic box like points, rebounds, assists. So it's like the scores you have when you are in high school, you play in a high school team. And so you really cannot do much about it. And after 1974, this called box era. So people start to think, yeah, if we are going to pay these players so much money, we need a better way to capture how good they are. So they start to develop a box score set. So which is called full box. So including like the rebound, we split it into offense rebound, defense rebound, or even more defensive stats, including steals, turnover, blocks, and also not only on the individual level, also the team level. So it's become more complete and standardized. And what's more interesting is after 1997, so coming into 21st century, people start to record more detailed action-based data. So it's not just about, okay, this certain rebounds, certain shots, but also like every moment, what are the players doing on the court? So the play data, I think you all know what it is. So during the game, you can check it out online, and this detail out what the player does to make a shot. So maybe dribble into the rim and pass to someone else, and then someone make the shot. So kind of like a key action that contribute to this point. So it doesn't just show you the stats, but also provide a context. And what's the like very recently optical tracking. So it's based on the computer vision technique that I talk about. So basically, right now, I don't know if you are aware of it, but all the 30 teams, 30 arenas for basketball, NBA basketball team, they have all the 6 cameras capturing all the players at for each game. So 1,240 games per season, and yeah, they're tracking the position of all the player every time, every second. So actually 25 frames per second. So you can imagine how large this data set will be. So what can they do? I'm going to show you some example. So yeah, on the top left, this is a camera tracking the player position for Spurs. So you can identify where the players are and even who they are. So the number of the player. And then you can easily transform that into a heat map, which shows where the player make a shot or not. So you can easily compare the strategy. So Boston, they usually make hot shots in the paint. And at that moment, Dallas, they are more in a mid-range game. And what's more interesting is once you have this data, you can actually recreate the whole game in a 3D. So like this one on the bottom right, you have a 3D reconstruction of the game, and then you can just do some annotation. So this brings a lot of value to the broadcasting or TV company. So they can do a replay, annotate the tactics, and explain what's interesting to lead the fans or the audience to look at. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, what else? So that's the data collection. You see there from a very limited box score into a very enriched optical tracking. There's more for data analysis. Like I said, you have all the data, but you don't know what to do with it. So in 21st century, we start to gain more modeling and statistic knowledge. It also builds on the computational power. So now you can create a very complex model to capture the relation between a certain parameters to the performance, like, oh, how well is the frequency of dribbling relates to your scoring, right? You can try to find a relation between any amount of parameters. And also thanks to machine learning, you can build upon traditional linear regression to a more complex neural network, deep learning neural network. And more importantly, so where my expertise come in is visualization, because like I said, if you have a very complex statistical model, only data scientist or statistician or mathematician can explain it, but it doesn't help sports experts. They don't need to know that much detail. So that's when visualization techniques really help them to identify the meat or like the most important part of the data. So yeah, some example like if you are a baseball fan, you know this is a way to kind of record the box score of baseball. It's been very it has been developed for a long time and it's still very efficient because they directly map the data onto the graph of the court. That's a type of traditional visualization. And for modern like dashboard or website, you can always see this kind of data table. So they color coded the number. So it's easily that you can see, oh, the orange means the Steph Curry is doing very good in this category, and blue means it's not as good. So you don't even need to read the number. You just look at the color and you see when they're good or bad. So it really speed or make it very efficient for people who make decision to extract insights from data. And last thing is you can even embed like with the computer vision technique, you can embed those data right into the video. And that makes it even more easier. So you don't have to, oh, I saw something interesting on the table and then I go back to check the video. You just check it right in the video. So there are quite a lot of visualization techniques that make the whole process easier. Let me give you another example. So this is a couple years before, there's one visualization researcher who developed this buckets dashboard. It shows the shot performance of each player. And so just imagine in a box score for each game, you get the 3-point percentage or shot attempts, all this different number. But yeah, of course you can just judge them from, okay, it's a 35% three-pointer. So yeah, that's pretty good. But you don't get much more detail. But with visualization and the combination of a more complex data, you get to explore even deeper questions. So for example, for this 2015 to 16 season, you can ask, oh, where does James Harden shoot better? So like at the ring, and now like with the three-pointer, he's usually only shot in these two positions. And you can see the similar data on this line chart as well. Like this is the distance versus the frequency of the shot. So it's only at the ring is a peak here. And then at the outside the three-pointer, there's also a peak. So you can see where he shot the most. And even more interesting, like this one, the middle bottom one. You can see this is the like left, right. So does he shoot from left or right? And then the distance. So the closer it is, the more he shots from the left. So when he drives into the ring, he always shoots from the left. And when he make the three-pointer, he always shoots from the right. Like more frequently shoot from the right. So it's just very interesting. Like from the fans' perspective, you get to see something new. But from the coaching perspective, you know if I'm defending him, where should I put my focus on, right? So this data dashboard with visualization gives you more insights into the data. Okay, so that's a brief introduction about sports analytics and what it looks like. Now I'm going to share with you some trends or like what are the current practice of the sports analytics in the sports industry. So many of you, some of you answered that sports analytics can be seen in basketball or other player performance, and all of that are true. So this is a data in 2017, and it shows that what's the percentage of the teams of the league that adopt data sports analytics. So for MLB, I believe now it's 100%. So you can see because they originate from MLB Moneyball, so it is the fastest growing in the whole all sports. And for NBA, it's also very high now. I think every team has it, but like depending on how many analysts they have, the adoption level is different. So roughly 80%. And then the next level is NFL. They also rely on data a lot to analyze how well their play execute and the performance. And NHL, the hockey, it's a little bit difficult because I guess the shot, like the ball is smaller. So they start to adopt it, gradually. And this is an interesting chart that I want to share with you. So it's just saying over the past 10 years, 2009 to 16, all the team in MLB grow like gradually, and some teams drastically grow their analytics staffs. So the leading one is Tampa Bay Rays. They have more than 16 personnel on their sports analytics teams. And Yankee, Dodger, all the very good team, they heavily rely on sports analytics in their team management and game development. Okay, so what's that relevant? They have so many sports analytics people. They actually transfer to winning rate. So this chart again showing what's the relation between the analyst and then the winning rate, and you can see. Like Dodger, Rays, they are on the top right corner, meaning they have more analysts and have a higher winning rate. And for the NBA, similar thing is stats about in 2020, how many personnel are in each team. And you can see the leading team in terms of how many sports analytics people they have is 76ers, Kings, Spurs, Oklahoma City, Thunders. Yeah, so they are all growing. Like Boston Celtics also have quite a few personnels. Yeah, so those are the professional teams level and the professional leagues. And for the sports startups, you can see, yeah, they've seen quite a growth in the startup industry as well. And in particular, here is the data analytics sectors. So some startups particularly focus on providing data and data analytics results to support the team or the media. And even for performance enhancement or like amateur sports, fitness, they also rely a lot on the data. Oh, even though they are not specific saying, oh, I'm using data. Usually they provide personal data, evaluation, and give you some insight. So what has been shown to you is sports data analytics has been a really great driving force for all of these startups and then the modern professional sports development. So yeah, let's lead to a little bit about the research because that's what the future relies on, like burn small research and then you will develop to the products. So this is MIT Sloan conference, which focus on sports analytics. And every year, yeah, like I said, many different international teams or companies will come here and share their knowledge of their latest development or latest business model. So this is a very interesting conference. In particular, they have a section called Sports Analytic Research. And I just dragged it from last year's poster session. And you can see the sports analytics is actually everywhere. So they have using Bayesian model to predict the NBA draft, or they predict the baseball strategy using AI, or like defensive player trajectory in NFL games, and even the betting for the soccer. So it covers a great breadth, and some of them use statistical models, some of them use just machine learning. So yeah, that's a lot of new research in this area. And I'm going to share a little bit about like what I did with basketball analytics 76ers. So I was there 2017 to 18. So it's a few years ago. So things change very quickly. So what I did there might not be what I do right now, but you can get a feeling of what's really ongoing there. So I was at the analytics strategy department. Right now they changed the name to R&D. So they start to focus more on the research as well. So I was there for a full season. And so in the beginning, when I joined, it's around the time of draft day. So I had to do something about scouting and how to make sure that when they draft, they have enough information to help them make decision. And then throughout the season, there is one big piece that I work on. It's a management dashboard. So we provide all the league and team level, even player level data through the dashboard. So this is where my expertise in visualization and human-computer interaction comes in. So I create a user-friendly application so the coach, the manager can use it easily. And we also have game reports for every single game. So the coach will get 15 pages report before the game, every single game. And on that shows which like the overall data and what insights you need to focus on, and even some visualization. And we also develop a lineup planning tool. So like coach have to plan the lineup for each game because some players are injured or they need to rest. And so before they just use Excel and fill in the name for each quarter, but we create a tool. So we can collect all those data automatically and we can calculate what the overall time this player has and in the past week or months, how much time he has played, and does that exceed a recommended amount of time. So it's just using the power of software to make it more streamlined and easy to use. And finally, the most majority of our time also goes to the playoff game. And then again, the next cycle begin, we have to evaluate the prospects of the next year's draft. So this is like a cycle of what analytics work in a NBA basketball team. So let me share with you a few very simple example what I work on. So the draft day, you can see this is how on the TV it shows to the audience, and on the left is on the website. You can see the ranking, the projected ranking of the prospects. However, what's really in the draft room when the player when the general managers discuss which person to draft, it's actually a 5 hours length, like duration of 5 hours meeting, and then they have to look at like on the table there are so many scouting report, and they need to make a lot of phone call in between because they are trading the draft pick or other assets while the draft is going on. So they actually need a different kind of dashboard than what's shown here. Not just the order, because the order is after they make the decision, right? So after this is my first project there, so I was interviewing them, showing what data are needed. So here, this is just a mock simulation. So on the left, you can see we have the ranking of the prospects based on what scouts said, because scouts have to do a exhaustive scouting during the season, and they recommend this should be like, oh, okay, Leo should be on the 15th pick. And then at the same time, they need to look at the team assets. So for Sixers, they want to trade with Celtics. They need to know what future picks they have, and then what assets and salary caps, all kind of things. So we need to present the data in an easy way so they can have them all in one place and help them make decisions. And finally, they also want to know what's the current order. So on the bottom, I show the draft order and where the current order is. And then on the right, you see what's the actual result. So for example, just as an example, De'Aaron Fox was picked as not third, but in fact, in our internal prospects order, he's at 5. So that means there is a gap of expectation and among the league and among the team. Then that means you can have some negotiation because someone else really wants this person, but you don't. So yeah, this dashboard really helps the team, the general managers, to make a better decision and have all the information they need at hand during the draft. Okay, and the other example, the game analysis. As I said, they got the game reports every single game. So this is one on the left. And however, you can see this is kind of, it's just a big data table. It's kind of difficult to read. So we also develop a dashboard, basically transcribe all this data into a visualization format. So the coach, usually they don't really care about, okay, the point per possession is 1.15. What does that mean? But they really care about the ranking. So if you are 1.12, does it rank number 2 or rank number 10? Because it's all the ranking game for NBA or any sports. You need to be the first 8 to enter the playoff. So instead of just highlighting what's the number, we use color and a bar chart to highlight the ranking of all these, the number. So yeah, this is a management dashboard the coaches and general manager use for all the season. And eventually, that season has been really successful when I was there, not just for me, for my contribution, but the whole team. So after 5 years missing the playoffs, that 17 to 18 season was actually a really good a good season for the 76ers. Okay, so yeah, so last one is what can you do? Because that's all I have done, other people have done in the industry. If you want to get into this industry, what can you do? What are the innovations out there? So I show you there are two companies that's leading in the basketball and analytics innovation. So this is Second Spectrum, and on the right there's a Thales. It is not just for the NBA but also for baseball, soccer, and all kind of sports analytics. So there are leading companies. They innovate in the sports analytics and create new way where data can be consumed and integrated into the game viewing experience. So yeah, I'm going to show you a video.
So these are examples of the AR application.
Yeah. Yeah, so like this is a very exciting video with the okay. So for example, it make use of the player tracking data. So you know the position of the player, like this is a screenshot. So you can project all the position, the lineup onto the 2D map from the top-down view. And you can even embed these kind of number or like what's the speed, the goal, the field goals on into the video. So you might already start to see it on TV or online a little bit, but now it's still not in real time. But imagine in a couple years it will be available in real time, so you can just see the data immediately into the video. So it has started to become part of our game viewing experience. And for the coach, so Rezo is a soccer analytics company in Europe, and they also have a lot of post-match analysis. So you can see from an analyst perspective, they get to see all kinds of visualization from different like 3D view, or so this really helps them to analyze data more efficiently, actually. And so yeah, I'm from academia right now, so I also want to share some of the exciting research in the sports analytics domain. So researchers in computer vision, data visualization, and human computer action are exploring different possibility with new technology. So on the top left is a computer vision in sports workshop. It's there every year, and it's a top conference about the computer vision technique. So they are dedicated into how this can be applied to sports industry as well. And yeah, so the soccer, no, the hockey I was talking about, it's start to adopt more sports analytics techniques. So there's also one research about hockey in this conference. So just some examples of the research, like for example, I was telling you right now, all the camera can track the player position and even recognize the players, but what else? So some research even use the machine learning model to learn, like, oh, what's the likely action this player is doing? So first they recognize player and then they recognize the potential action. So for example, you see, oh, this person is probably walking and the probability is 57%. So just by training more and more, you get to be more accurate about the prediction. And then you can potentially predict what this player is going to do next. So that would be very exciting from a coach perspective. And next is right now there's also technique that just from a pure image, you can reconstruct the player in a 3D mode. So you imagine in the future, you don't just watch TV on the 2D screen, you get to experience it in 3D in VR. So this is a very interesting research. And then there is also data-driven video editing tool. So as some of you might be aware that the sports video editing is a very important process for the scouts, for the coach. They usually watch the videos to analyze the games and learn what they need to do in the game. But this process is really repetitive and time consuming for the video coordinators. So these tools, it help you based on the data, you can easily edit and annotate visualization into the video, and it will make both from the coordinator side, it saves them a lot of time, and from the viewers side, they get to see much more data right in the video. And then so some interesting domains I'm working on is combining sports into AR VR. So this is a VR training system where the people practice to hit, but then they also see the trajectory and then the speed or the data right in front of their face, so they get the immediate feedback to improve their own performance. One project I've been working on was the AR shot training system. So AR is the augmented reality. So through a AR glass, you can see digital information in front of you. So this is a player wearing HoloLens, and then this is what they see in front of them after they make a shot. So let me share with you the process. So you will imagine you are wearing this AR glass, and you get to choose what's your target art look like. So you can adjust the shot angle, and then you see a virtual line in front of you. And then next, you will shoot while you see that guiding trajectory in front of you. And then afterwards, you can compare immediately right after a shot. Like, okay, if you make it, is it your trajectory aligned with your expected trajectory? And if you miss it, like when is the trajectory go off? So yeah, so this was one very exciting project I work on, integrating the AR technology, camera tracking with the actual athlete shot training. And so sports XR, the domain I was working on, still working on, is combining sports analytics with the immersive technology that's been really popular recently. So I also recognize the training, the coaching, the fan experience are all very relevant domain to be worked on. So this is an emerging research area, and I can see the trend, like some commercial or industry company also start to tap into this domain. So in the next few years, if you are interested in this domain, I think this will be something that's getting more popular and even more funding. So my last sentence for this talk is the future for sports analytics is wide open. As you can see, it just starts out, and with the advance of technologies, there are just so many possibilities. So if you are interested, we are very lucky to live in 21st century, and there are quite a few things you can do. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Tiga. Wow, it's a very informative presentation. So guys, do you have any questions? We have a couple minutes left. Do you have any questions? Any questions, you guys? Now let me ask first one. So I mean, so most of them there are sport manager students. So basically, we don't have much knowledge about computer science and digitalized product, this kind of information. So what do you think? What's the suggestions? So any classes we may like to take or they may like to take if they want to pursue the sport analytics in a future career? What kind of classes, except for outside of sport management, you would suggest them to take?
Oh, I think there are quite a few. I think like data science, data analytics is a spectrum actually. So you can go really far into statistic trend model or like very deep into math. But on the other hand, if you're just interested in how data are applied into business, there are business analytics, the business analytics discipline. So I think the name might be different, but like in our school, there is business analytics course or data analytics. And if you want to specifically apply it into sports, I think some sports analytic courses are available, but just make sure it's not more toward the science side, but more forward applied business side. Yeah, and I think Because it's such a huge area, so it actually requires all kinds of expertise. So of course you need people who have scientific, computer science or statistic background. But like myself, I'm not very strong statistician, but I'm more on the design visualization side because you need to communicate that to the coach, to the stakeholders. However, there's also, as we start to design more innovative products of this data dashboard, data analytics, you definitely need novel business models. So if you are more on the business side, I think just a basic understanding of how this technique work and then what value it can bring to the target audience, the teams, it will give you a ground of how you can contribute from different perspectives.
Very good, very good. Awesome, awesome. Any other questions? Other questions? Let me have another one. So what's the challenge usually faced when you work in the sport analytics field?
Yeah, I think this is a really good question. Like from my side, because I come from kind of computer science background or design, I think for me the challenge is usually finding the collaborators in sports. And because I don't usually, so I'm familiar with basketball, but my next project I will be working with badminton players and coach. So that's actually a challenge, right? So the different domain, you have to learn their language, and even through the interview or just field study, you have to understand what their needs are. So I think the nature of sports analytics being interdisciplinary, it's from the science and the sports, it poses a lot of challenge. So I think everyone in this domain, they start out somewhere, like from science, from statistics, or from sports, and then they try to learn each other's language. And I think being able to adapt to each other's needs and trying to find a solution together, that's actually the key to a successful uh, production in this domain.
Perfect. Wow, thank you, thank you. Any other questions? All right, so if you all have no other questions, like thanks Tika again to support the class, and so you guys check the course announcement so you know we will not have class next week, and then there will be exam 3 for you to complete. Okay, so I'll see you guys after 10 days, I guess.